Yeah, I'd want to
Wouldn't
go
we
there.
all love to go back to a time to
Yeah.
eat Nan's cooking?
That's lovely.
Yeah. So he's brilliant. He didn't stop talking about them all day, to be honest. And then to follow that up, I have Ravi.
Ravi's my favourite.
It's so funny that people project their favourites, and they could really resonate with certain members of the class, and it's fantastic to see. But Ravi seems to be the apple of everyone's eye, and rightly so. He's such a beautiful little kid, man. He's absolutely wonderful. And he said he'd go back to see his granddad again, which is just yeah. You feel your bottom lip kind of go a little bit. And when he says it, you have to kind of hold it together. But yeah, he said that they played marbles together, and you could tell that he was just such a sweet man. And I agree with him. I'd absolutely give anything to go back and see, my deceased loved ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a super intelligent one.
Yeah.
But then this is where I find the beauty of children, is that got followed up with Rosie. She came up and said that she would use her time travel powers to go back to the cinema to just go and see Hotel Transylvania 2 because she really enjoyed it.
Oh, bless.
Yeah. And I thought, well, I suppose that's a part of history, going to see classic films. I'm sure some people would use their powers to go back and see the opening weekend of Star Wars or Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
But I suppose her reference for it is Hotel Transylvania 2.
Bless.
Yeah.
Oh, so is that all of them from that thread?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the headlines of them. I don't want to. I don't want to ramble on.
So what kind of questions have you got in the pipeline?
I'm going to try. Actually, this week is going to be a little bit different. Normally, I ask them quite profound, big questions. Sometimes they're quite trivial, but normally they're quite big questions. But this week, I'm going to give them a historical figure, and I'm going to ask them to, 1, tell me who this person is, and 2, tell me what they do, as in why are they famous. And I'm very interested to see what they come up with. I have a few ideas for which historical figure I'm going to use, but yeah, that's what I'm going to do this week. But I have a few. I normally post out a poll. I normally have people comment in. They want to ask the kids questions, so I put 2 to a vote, and then the winner gets to have a go.
Brilliant. That sounds great. So if people want to read these threads, which I think you need to write a book on, have you thought about that?
I'm actually in conversation at the moment with a few people. We're trying to come up with sort of ideas about how to make them into a thread, whether it's going to be a bigger long format or if it's kind of on the same theme as the threads. But yeah, so it's hopefully, fingers crossed, it's in the early stages, but hopefully it's on the way.
No, it's great, because not only are the kids' comments priceless, but it's your commentary on them as well. Quite funny, and how it makes you feel. So brilliant. So good luck with that, and if people want to read your threads, where can they read them?
They can come to my Twitter page, which is just at George Poynton, and then I don't know what they're called, but those little, it's not an underscore, I think they're called.
Yeah,
just at George Poynton and then an underscore. Yeah. So that's where I am.
There's no numbers, just the underscore.
No numbers.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So on Twitter. Well, thank you very much for coming in. I know you've got to get your own kids to school now. So
yes. Yeah, I've got to sort myself out now.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right. Okay. Speak soon.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
No probs. All right. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.
So that was George Poynton. I've put his Twitter account into the chat, which is at George Poynton _. So check out the threads. They're absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Okay. And now we have an advert.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts, or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsia puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence. How to deal with difficult colleagues. How to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment. And how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. A socially intelligent robot called Pepper has been helping to boost the well-being of autistic students at a school in Somerset. Pepper comes from the Bristol Robotics Lab and has been supporting students with their communication skills. The professor behind the study said the use of robots to engage with autistic children is not entirely new, and that robots are the perfect tool as they interact with children on their terms. Unfortunately, however, it would cost a school £20,000 for their own Pepper. councils have written to schools warning of a food shortage resulting from the loss of 100,000 UK lorry drivers thanks to COVID and Brexit. School cooks will be provided with standby ingredients such as frozen fish fingers and dry pasta to help cope with the potential food shortage. Rod Mackenzie, the Managing Director of Policy at the Road Haulage Association, said the government needs to act fast before food supplies get to a critical level, and called it completely unsurprising that school meals were now being affected. Government figures show COVID cases in schools have risen by 70% in the last week. Kevin Courtney, Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union, told The Times there was every prospect of many more children self-isolating, as cases were expected to continue to rise into July. 18,270 cases of COVID were reported on Saturday, the highest number since the 5th of February. That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
Welcome back. We've been talking to George Poynton and his wonderful threads on Twitter about his lovely Year 1 class, a class of 5-year-olds living in the moment. Now, I'm almost afraid to do my usual section of looking at newspaper headlines, but here we go. Okay, let's start with The Guardian. Prime Minister still has big questions to answer over Hancock. I'll say. The events surrounding Matt Hancock's departure as Health Secretary continue to feature prominently on the front pages. The Guardian carries comments from Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, who says Boris Johnson still has huge questions to answer. Well, a key question I've got is, where has Keir Starmer been? Because I've not heard from him at all. Has anyone else? Has anyone else seen a speech? Has anyone else heard Starmer asking for Hancock's dismissal? Just not heard from him at all. It's just really odd. Okay, Ms. Colandangelo's £15,000 role at the Department of Health involved 15 to 20 days of work per year. The government is being urged to launch an investigation into a potential abuse of public money, the paper says. The resignation is far from the end of the matter, Sir Keir says. Okay, so yeah, I have to admit, it's been very icky this weekend, the whole Hancock affair, literally. It's just been, first of all, it was bad enough seeing a photo, and then there was a video. I mean, okay, it was funny hearing the Alan Partridge voiceover over the video, but at the same time, it was still pretty grim watching that. And yeah, I wish I hadn't really. Metro. So this is the London paper. Hancock, and they've got that picture on the front page again. Oh my God, the poor wife. Imagine being this man's wife, seeing this plastered all over the papers, just be hideous. Hancock clinch is reported to police. Too right. Bereaved families call for him to be prosecuted over breach of his COVID rules. I don't know if anyone saw the Metropolitan Police. So the London Police tweeted out that we won't be prosecuting or investigating this Hancock because it will be retrospective. Now, I only came across that tweet because Minority Report was trending on Twitter, and I was wondering why. That's one of my favourite films. Well, it's a film I enjoy quite a lot, and I was like, why is this trending? And it's because the Met Police said they don't, investigate crimes retrospectively. So, what have they got? Precogs working on, future potential crimes? Is that all they deal with? Not crimes that have already happened? It was the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard. Okay, the Daily Express. Britain's COVID resolve put to the test. We've got frustration over Mr. Hancock's actions is having a nationwide impact, according to the Daily Express. Britain's COVID resolve put to the test is the paper's headline. The Express says experts are worried that the former health secretary's actions could open the floodgates to mass rule breaking before 19th of July, the date when the final lockdown restrictions in England could lift. Now, if we go by history, if we look at when Dominic Cummings was caught breaking the rules by checking his eyesight at Barnard Castle, probably about this time last year, we know that that's exactly what happened. Loads of people were like, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. One rule for them, one rule for us. Well, I might as well just break the rules then. And to be honest, it's not much of a lockdown at the moment. Whenever I'm out and about, there's loads of people around in crowds, and I'm trying to think, what can't you do right now? Anyone texting or calling? In the UK, what is it that you can't do? Because I'm just trying to think, or maybe I've just stopped doing a lot of stuff, so I can't remember what I used to do. Because we can go to restaurants, the kids are at school. What else? You can meet people outside of your home. You can meet people inside your home. You can meet people in the garden. So maybe my world's a little bit small, but I suppose it's still difficult for 20-year-olds, those that still go out pubbing and clubbing. The clubs still aren't open, are they? Are they? I don't think they are. Okay, let's have a look at the Daily Telegraph. Javid Sajid is on the front pages. Now, this is the same Javid that he resigned as Home Secretary because he said that the Prime Minister's demands were unreasonable. But now he's brought back into the fold as Health Secretary. And what he wants, and the first thing he says is he's keen to end lockdown as soon as possible. So on his first full day as the newly appointed Health Secretary, Mr. Javid said returning to normal quickly was his most immediate priority. The Telegraph quotes a source close to Mr. Javid who says he will be extremely reluctant to back an extension to restrictions. Separately, the paper reports that the Defence Secretary and the UK's 6 most senior military commanders are self-isolating after the head of the armed forces tested positive for coronavirus. Excuse me. Now, coming back to Sajid Javid, now you might be extremely reluctant to back an extension, but if that's what needs to happen, I mean, they'll say that we are following the science, but they say we are following the science, not dates. But they're clearly following dates. So, I don't know. I find that annoying. Right. So, the Red Eye, the Independent. Whitehall security row after Hancock CCTV leak. Yes, this is what I was saying earlier. The Eye leads with news that the Department of Health will look at how footage of Mr. Hancock embracing Ms. Collard-Angelo came to be leaked. Officials want the camera that caught Mr. Hancock to be taped up and deactivated before Mr. Javid arrives, the paper adds. Jeremy Hunt, the former Health Secretary, who is now chairman of the Commons Health Committee, said it was completely unacceptable to film ministers inside offices without them knowing. This is true, but look at the corruption we've uncovered from it. Not that I'm saying that we should be spying on our own ministers. That's weird. And I really do wish I hadn't seen any of this stuff over the weekend. Okay, the Daily Mirror. Disgusting. Yeah, with a picture of Mr. Hancock. Fury as he is set for 16,000 golden payoff after quitting. He's facing probe over his conduct as Health Secretary. Bereaved families' anger at shamed Tories' hypocrisy. Now, this is the thing. He resigned not over his appalling record as Health Secretary, not over not having enough PPE and then lying about it on TV, for NHS workers, not over the over 100,000 people that have died and the debacle over the people in social care who died, but because he was caught out with his mistress and he resigned. But he says it's because he resigned because he broke social distancing rules. That's pretty grim. And because he resigned and not sacked, he gets a golden payoff. And Boris Johnson himself has said that this won't be the end of your public service. So that tells me he'll probably get a knighthood. So, yeah, so excuse me if I am bitter and twisted about that, because that is just shocking. I find that absolutely shocking because, I mean, partly because like many families out there, like my father passed away last year, and that was probably accelerated because he needed to have an operation that he couldn't have. They said because of COVID, it would have been, more dangerous probably if he'd had that operation, but he couldn't have that. They denied him the operation, and then within 6 weeks he passed away. But perhaps if Hancock had done his job properly, one could argue that maybe that may not have happened as quickly. So if I sound a bit twisted about that, that is why. But I'm aware that many people feel the same way. Okay, the Daily Mail. Shamed Hancock did affair with aide start a year ago. I don't care really about that. But their headline is Lost Children of Lockdown. Shock report reveals 100,000 pupils failed to return to education full-time when their schools reopened. Okay, so a day after its sister Sunday paper quoted a friend of Mr. Hancock saying that the former health secretary, okay, let's not talk about that. Its lead story, however, is headlined Lost Children, and it just repeats what it says. So where are these children? Are they being homeschooled? Why don't people know about this? Are they being homeschooled? Are they just skiving off school? Have they got long COVID? I mean, what's the story? That's a lot of children. So we don't know what's happened to 100,000 UK children. Okay. Financial Times. Binance banned from Britain as global crypto crackdown widens. Now, my other half has bought cryptocurrency, and I've banned him from talking about it, because I honestly don't think anything could be more boring than talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and whether it's going up or down or anything like that. So that's the end of that headline. The Times. Patel plans for migrants to be held in offshore hub. This kind of reminds me of the Nazis asking if all the Jews could be sent to Madagascar. The Times reports that Priti Patel will introduce new laws which will allow the government to create an offshore immigration processing centre for asylum seekers. The Home Secretary is due to begin talks with Denmark over sharing a centre in Africa, the paper adds. And the lead image on the front page is of 7-time Wimbledon women's single champion Serena Williams on the eve of the championships. Oh, of course it's Wimbledon. It's been raining. So it must be time for Wimbledon. Okay, Daily Star. I have to say, I went for a walk with a friend last night, a really good friend of mine. And I came back and had to put everything in the dryer. Absolutely soaked to the skin. What horrific weather we're having for June, the height of our summer. Okay, Daily Star. Vlad's army, you stupid boy. They've got the Ministry of Defence, idiot, leaves secret files about British ship facing down the Russians at a bus stop. Now, for once, I agree with the Daily Star's headline there. I cannot believe somebody from the Ministry of Defence left classified papers about one of our British destroyers and troop movements in Afghanistan at a bus stop. That is, I mean, you couldn't write better material. I mean, like, if you're thinking about the news of the government, the UK government over the weekend, I despair. I have to say, I despair. Okay, so we've been talking about the headlines, which I have to say are just, I have to say it's tough being British right now. With Brexit, with all the stuff that's happening in education, debacle, with Matt Hancock and his debacle, and our Ministry of Defence leaving stuff at bus stops. Is this taking back control? Have to ask that question. This government came to power on the idea of taking back control, and I have to say, if this is taking back control, what on earth is it like when you lose control? Right, what I do want to talk about next is freedom of speech versus cancel culture. But first up, we've got an advert.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
teachers do love stationery, and what a fantastic deal! You get to get a discount if you mention us at Teachers Talk Radio. So yeah, teachers love stationery, love it. Okay, freedom of speech versus cancel culture. Now I'll start talking about this, and then at 8 o'clock we've got the news. So if we're looking at freedom of expression, now the reason why I'm talking about this is because it's been in the Guardian newspaper that a teacher had threats to her life, and the whole article was about how mob attacks on social media are silencing UK teachers. I've seen this. I suspect I know who this teacher is as well, because I didn't agree with that teacher's tweet, but I messaged her and I said, I hope you're okay, because I can see all these attacks. But can I just say that I don't really agree with your tweet because of A, B, and C. I hope you understand my point of view. So I did it in a nice way, and she said, thank you very much. So if it's the same person, but the stuff that was being said, oh, somebody just tried to call in. Do call in again. The stuff that was being said to this person was shocking, actually. And we now realize from this article that it was a coordinated event, because I just thought, who are these people jumping on this poor teacher? So if we're looking at freedom of expression, it's a fundamental human right. It's a cornerstone of our democracy. And democracy can't flourish unless citizens can articulate their opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation, censorship, or sanction. Okay, now that somebody needs to put that big and loud and clear on Twitter, because I know Twitter's quite adversarial. I think it was built that way. It's designed that way. But I've been on Twitter since 2010, so that's 11 years. And I have to say, the worst of it I've ever seen is in the last year. And I don't know if it's because of lockdown and people are stressed, or if it's a culmination of the polarized opinions across the country about different topics in education, on politics, but things have got worse in terms of the way that there can be an absolute pile-on. If you just say something that's different to somebody else's views, there are so many times I go to say something and then I think, life's too short. Actually, I'm not even going to give my view. I'm just going to walk away from that one, because I haven't got the energy to deal with a pile-on. And to be honest, my skin isn't that thick. I'll take it. It would crush me if there was a pile-on on me. This poor teacher had threats to her life. So she tweeted, I'm saying she, oh, it is she. She tweeted about teaching students about racism earlier this year, but she wasn't prepared for the flood of abuse she unleashed. A right-wing activist group flagged her as a dangerous teacher. And this is what I was reading, saying that she was a Nazi sympathizer, a child abuser. They were saying they were going to report her to a school, report her to the police. People already writing to a school. Now, this teacher was singled out by Turning Point UK. It's the British offshoot of Turning Point USA, a Trump-supporting right-wing organisation. The UK version has 36,000 followers on Twitter, and it encourages its supporters to report teachers and academics for left-wing bias on education. on the Education Watch part of its site. And if you have a look at its site, it often names individual teachers and schools on its Twitter feed. Now, I've seen this a lot from more right-wing. See, I hate using right-wing and left-wing, partly because sometimes it's just been a sensible view, in my view, or a view I might have that's seen as left-wing, and I don't see myself as left. I'm a bit of a centrist with left-leaning views, I suppose. But to be called, oh, you're a socialist, and seen as bad views, well, that's not really freedom of expression, is it? So many teachers are being driven off social media, and if it's the same teacher I'm thinking of, this person was off social media for at least a week, and there were personal attacks by other educators, and this worries me. When you've got educators, people that are in charge of children, and the way they speak to other educators on social media, you do have to think, what if your students read this, what would they think? If your parents read this, what would they think? And maybe that's a good bar to use when you are. It used to be the bar was, if you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, don't say it at all. But I'm a bit worried what some people would say to people's faces. So maybe the better bar is thinking, if your head teacher read this, what would they think? If your if your employer read this, if your students read this, if the parents of your students read this, what would they think? Is it something you'd want them to read that you've written about somebody else? It's part of the reason why Teachers Talk Radio exists, I suppose, because we believe, if you look at our mission statement, and I'll read it out, the Teachers Talk Radio mission statement, it was written by the whole executive team together, where we're all throwing out ideas and what we're really committed to and changing the wording. So it's something that we're pretty proud of, really. But the mission statement is, at Teachers Talk Radio, we believe in diversity of opinion, are committed to a range of voices and views being heard. We believe healthy debate comes not from silencing others, but from a fair and open discussion. Teachers Talk Radio and its hosts work within the spirit and practice of the Equality Act 2010. We will not tolerate any form of intimidation, bullying, or harassment. Now that, I don't feel that's unreasonable. As a head of department, I encouraged healthy debate within my team because I think it's important to disagree. So then you can come up with the best policy. If you're surrounded by yes men or women, you're not going to get the best policy. I always kind of liken it to Michael Jackson, I suppose, surrounded by his entourage, and he may say, oh, do you think my nose looks good? It's an awful example, and they'll all go, you look fantastic, Michael, and he looks a mess. He looks an absolute mess. And wouldn't it have been great if somebody had said to him, look, mate, sort yourself out. You need to go and see a psychiatrist or something. You just need somebody to be honest with you, because then you can come up with the right decision. So, but isn't this what teachers teach in schools? Because as a history, citizenship, RE teacher, PSHE, I encouraged young people to have their views, to question, to say, this is what I think, but listen to other people's views. And then I'd go back to them and say, do you still believe that? And they'll be like, no, actually, I've changed my mind. And allow that culture where you could have a healthy debate, where it's not like EastEnders, where I haven't watched EastEnders in about 20 years, by the way, but like, when two people have a row on EastEnders, somebody is found dead in the square or something. It shouldn't be that adversarial. It should be more kind of, well, I disagree with you. Let's agree to disagree. Okay, I have my views. You have your views, and I respect that. That's how it seemed to be in the old days. I used to watch a program on TV called The Week. Anyone here watch that? It was Thursday nights with Andrew Neil, and he always had Michael Portillo and Diane Abbott. Now, Michael Portillo was at one point Chancellor of the Exchequer in John Major's government. Diane Abbott, Shadow Home Secretary in the Labour government, the first black woman in Parliament. Both of these people have complete polar opposite views politically, but they'd be sat next to each other on the sofa, and it'd be hilarious because they'd have a laugh, and you could see how much respect they had for each other. There wasn't that. Nothing was personal. It was political. It was a healthy debate where they'd discuss things. Well, I don't agree with that. I think blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think that, blah, blah, blah. And then they'd have a bit of a giggle, and then they'd move on. And I feel like we've kind of lost that a bit. I want to quote Obama. Obama's always good to quote. But in the meantime, if you have any views on this, cancel culture versus freedom of speech, do call in or message in or tweet at TT Radio 2021. Almost forgot then. So, Mr. Obama told an audience, I get a sense among certain young people on social media that the way of making change is to be as judgmental as possible about other people. If I tweet or hashtag about how you didn't do something right or used the wrong verb, then I can sit back and feel pretty good about myself because, man, did you see how woke I was? I called you out. If all you're doing is casting stones, you're probably not going to get that far. And he also says, one of the things I do worry about among progressives in the United States, maybe it's true here as well, is a kind of rigidity where we say, I'm sorry, this is how it's going to be. And then we start sometimes creating what's called a circular firing squad, where you start shooting at your allies because one of them has strayed from purity on the issues. Now, I have seen this on Twitter. We've got a view from FOD3. Freya, that's it, Freya. I agree with everything you are saying. Thank you, Freya. You're my new best friend. Tweets can often seem quite abrasive. We need to encourage healthy debate. Twitter has generated so many dichotomies as well, where people might feel pressured to take a particular side, which isn't healthy. Absolutely, Freya. Things have become really polarized and very black and white. You're either a progressive or a trad, which I've never heard inside a school about the way you teach, your teaching and learning philosophy. You're either into zero tolerance and exclusions or completely hug a hoodie type, give them a hug, that's what they need, one or the other. And actually it's much more nuanced than that. Real education, real teaching, real working in schools is much more nuanced than the whole black and white way of doing things. The minute you go black and white, right, we're going full zero tolerance, it's gonna exclude people, possibly literally exclude a lot of people. I don't know, why did this debate start on are you for exclusions or not? There's always a place for exclusions, as long as it's not willy-nilly, like excluding left, right and centre. If we're thinking about the safety of staff and other students, you might have to exclude. It's an absolute last resort. But and we need to think about, how come certain types of students are being more excluded than others. But it's not as black and white as saying, well, in this school we don't exclude. So okay. What else? Right. So I have to say, I was attacked on Twitter. And like I said, I don't have a thick skin. I think I come across as hard, but I'm not. I'm not. I'm not hard at all. Somebody says something to me, I'm like, oh. I was attacked because I said something that didn't fit certain people's narrative about diversity and anti-racism. Now, I said we also need diversity of thought, not just diversity in terms of colour, in terms of race. And there was a little pylon on that where it was very rude and aggressive and attacking me. I tried to explain that actually I was agreeing that we need diversity. So I was agreeing with these people. So it's like Obama says about attacking people that are your allies. So I was agreeing that we need diversity, but I was also saying diversity isn't just about race. We've got intersectionality, we've got LGBTQI+, but also diversity of thought is absolutely needed. So in Britain, we had a race report, which was a controversial report that basically said there is no institutional racism in this country. Even trying to say that is quite difficult for me. There is no racism in this country, institutional, that is. But this was written by people from diverse backgrounds. But clearly they had no diversity of thought because they all had similar political leanings. So my point was, it's all very well having people from diverse backgrounds, but we also need diversity of thought. But I got attacked for that because that wasn't the narrative they wanted to push. And I couldn't work out what they were attacking me on, but apparently I was distracting from people of colour, and I hate that phrase. I was distracting from that, but I was actually agreeing with them, but also saying it's more nuanced than that, because there's no point having a whole load of people of colour if they're all from the same political leaning, whether it's right or left wing. So you do need diversity of thought in groups. What do you think? Are you of the ilk that says you don't agree with me, so you can't be part of the conversation? How do you respond when someone disagrees with you? When you have children in your class that disagree with each other, how do you deal with that? Because the mind boggles for me when children disagree. Surely teachers are saying, okay, let's hear your point of view. Let's hear the other person's point of view. Now, what's your counter argument? Surely that's what teachers are teaching young people. It's an important skill to have. But then why are teachers on social media being mean? That's it, really. They're being mean. They're not being very nice at all to other educational professionals who have a point of view, who are expressing their point of view. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you have healthy disagreements in team meetings? Or does it turn into a row? Or is there just resigned agreement? It's all very polite. The head of department is more like a dictator and says, right, this is what we're doing. and everyone has to lump it? Or is there genuine discussion where people say, well, I don't think that's a good idea? I'll never forget, it was my first time as an assistant principal, but I was also head of humanities in this school. And I was sitting having a meeting with my team, and I'd said I'm thinking maybe we need to have a humanities GCSE, because my old school had it and it was very popular, and well, the uproar was unbelievable, and I had to calm them down and say one by one I wanted to hear their views. And they convinced me, and I said, okay, we won't go with it. And they were absolutely right, but they were absolutely shocked because my predecessor wasn't that sort. She'd never have gone back on a decision she'd made, even if it was the wrong decision, and even if the rest of her team disagreed with it. So I listened to their views and I said, well, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's the wrong decision for this school. So do you have the confidence to say that? Is that confidence, or is that, I don't know, what is that? Is that a social skill? Is that a management skill? What do you think? I don't know. Call in. Let us know what your thoughts are. I can't remember if I've played the news the second time. I think Megan Goods is usually in the... Freya says it's good leadership and confidence. Yes, absolutely. Now, Freya, you can tell me, did I play the second lot of news? I can't remember now. Not yet.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Megan Goods.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News. A socially intelligent robot called Pepper has been helping to boost the well-being of autistic students at a school in Somerset. Pepper comes from the Bristol Robotics Lab and has been supporting students with their communication skills. The professor behind the study said the use of robots to engage with autistic children is not entirely new, and that robots are the perfect tool as they interact with children on their terms. Unfortunately, however, it would cost a school £20,000 for their own Pepper. Councils have written to schools warning of a food shortage resulting from the loss of 100,000 UK lorry drivers thanks to COVID and Brexit. School cooks will be provided with standby ingredients such as frozen fish fingers and dry pasta to help cope with the potential food shortage. Rod Mackenzie, the Managing Director of Policy at the Road Haulage Association, said the government needs to act fast before food supplies get to a critical level, and called it completely unsurprising that school meals were now being affected. Government figures show COVID cases in schools have risen by 70% in the last week. Kevin Courtney, Joint General Secretary of the National Education Union, told The Times there was every prospect of many more children self-isolating, as cases were expected to continue to rise into July. 18,270 cases of COVID were reported on Saturday, the highest number since the 5th of February. That was your latest Teachers Talk Radio News.
Morning, morning, morning. Welcome back, everyone. Now, I've done the adverts. I've done the 2 newses. I've had a guest on. Tick, tick, tick. Next up, we're talking about prevent. Now, the reason why we're talking about this, that's annoying me now. The reason why we're talking about this is because an 11-year-old primary school pupil was referred to the government's controversial counter radicalisation prevent programme after a teacher mistook the word arms, ALMS, for arms, ARMS, during a classroom discussion. The boy's teacher asked what pupils would do if they found themselves in possession of a lot of money. According to a legal challenge against the school lodged by the boy's parents, he said he would give alms to the oppressed. The teacher interpreted this as give alms to the oppressed and made the prevent referral. Now, as a teacher, when a child says something like that and you're not quite sure what they meant, even if you're absolutely 100% sure they said arms, ARMS, you'd still talk to them one-to-one. Could you explain to me what you meant? What kind of arms would you give them? You know, you just ask them a few questions, not only to make sure you're on the right lines, but also it's useful to know what kind of, what are they being exposed to out there. But this teacher went straight to making a prevent referral. And not only that, I suppose if you're making a prevent referral, I don't know if anyone out there's ever made one before. I've had a long time ago, I had the training, but I'm sure you'd have to go through your head teacher, a bunch of other people. Wouldn't you just have a chat with a kid? Especially if this kid is, not that you should have that kind of prejudice, but this is a bright boy on the way to grammar school in September. You kind of think, parents are from a middle class background. I shouldn't be using that phrase, really, middle class, but it's kind of, it's not the usual, if you like, because those that get radicalized tend to come from poorer backgrounds, and feel oppressed by society and all kinds of things like that. So it seems a bit, anyway. And the other awful thing is that, the great thing is that Warwickshire and West Mercia police swiftly closed this file, but the referral will stay on the boy's file and the information will be passed on to the grammar school the boy is due to attend in September. But he hasn't done anything wrong. So I don't know, that's pretty appalling. No wonder the parents are taking them to court. So those that don't know, PREVENT is part of the UK government counter-terrorism strategy. It's all about the 4 Ps: pursue, to stop terrorists; prevent, to stop people becoming radicalized or supporting terrorists; protect, to strengthen the protection against terrorist attacks; prepare, to lessen the impact of a terrorist attack. So you can see the theme here. Now, the strategy contains 3 key objectives, which are to respond to the ideological challenge of terrorism and the threat from those who promote it, prevent people from being drawn into terrorism and ensure that they are given appropriate advice and support, and work with sectors and institutions where there are risks of radicalization that we need to address. Now, there's a lot of criticism about this program, mainly because of the training, partly because of the training. And I have to say, when I was having Prevent training, and now this was about 6 years ago, probably, so it would have changed. I'm sure it's changed a bit, but I have to wonder. They had one of the slides had a list of words that we as teachers would need to look out for, and one of the words was jihad. And one of our Muslim teachers put a hand up and said, the thing with the word jihad is it means struggle. And so, a kid might attempt to throw a bottle into the bin and say, oh, it was a bit of a jihad to get it in there. I mean, these are her words, not mine. And so listening out for that word, fair enough, you'd be like, what's that about then? But it seemed a bit, it wasn't explained well. I didn't feel like it was explained well at all to us. I also don't think it focused enough on right-wing radicalization. Now, those of you listening in might have had Prevent training recently, so let me know what has it been like, because the area I was teaching in, there was much more danger of right-wing radicalization, and so really we needed more support to look into that, but it didn't really touch on that very much. Okay. The press has described stories of young children being reported for mispronunciation of words. So instead of saying, I lived in a terraced house, a little boy wrote terrorism, a terrorist house, and then gets reported. I mean, do teachers talk to children? I mean, it seems ridiculous, really. There are also prominent people and organizations that have somebody tried to call in. I let them in twice and I still can't see them. So if you did want to call in, please do. We've only got about 5 minutes left, but do call in. So they're saying, so people that are very much against this Prevent strategy, they're saying Prevent is actually creating a sense of mistrust amongst ethnic minority groups. Andy Burnham, former Labour MP and current Mayor of Manchester, has recommended that Prevent should be abolished. Burnham suggested that Prevent is now seen as a toxic brand due to the way it has caused distrust in many communities. I even heard the year before, I heard of Prevent being called in, or the police being called in, because a child came back from holiday in Bangladesh wearing a headscarf, and suddenly the entire family are being questioned, which seems ridiculous. The National Union of Students fears that if Prevent is not correctly used, it can cause alienation and discrimination based on faith and culture. Now, alienation and discrimination is perfect for terrorist organizations to groom young people, isn't it? So actually, they're creating problems. Black and Asian students are at risk of racial profiling, and they believe this could lead to signs of Islamophobia on university campuses. President of the NUS says that Prevent is not guided by intelligence or statistical evidence or criminal behaviour. What are your thoughts? It does sound like it alienates people. It does sound like there's not enough proper education in that area, it does sound like there's not enough training for teachers. But that's what it sounds like to me. What are your thoughts? So this show has flown by, considering I've only had one guest, and what a fantastic guest as well. George Poynton and his lovely class, year 1 class, with their views on the meaning of life. If they could turn back time, where would they go? Yeah, or one said the park across the street. It's just really sweet, great thread. If you want to read some more, go to @George Poynton, Pointon, and a little underscore, and check out his threads. We've been talking about freedom of speech versus cancel culture. And we've been talking about Prevent, the UK's counter-terrorism strategy. So that's me for today. Next week, we've got special guests, Catherine Grice and Safet Vakulic. Now, Safet, fantastic guy, originally from Bosnia. He was a refugee. He lived through the horrendous war, separated from his family, and his story is pretty heartbreaking, actually, but also ends nicely as well in the UK. And so he's a lovely guy. So it'd be great. We can listen to his story and his experience of coming to the UK as a refugee child. And Catherine Grice, she, along with somebody else, and I can't remember their name, is going to be talking about this organization that helps immigrant children. So it sounds absolutely fascinating. So do listen in next week. Oh, it's 8:30. I have to take my kids to school. 6 p.m. tonight. We've got, oh no, Scott can't make it this week. I'm sorry. Apologies. Scott can't make it this week. But at 8 o'clock, we've got Emily Follow-On Show. 9 o'clock tomorrow. 7 o'clock tomorrow, we've got Tabitha. Yay, Tabitha McIntosh. 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, we've got Emma Shepherd. We've got new hosts this week, Neil Mullen and Harry Waters. I'm Mal Krishnasamy, and you've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Live for the week, not just the weekend.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.